Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. My name is Sarah and today we are going to go through my August wrap-up. So in the month of August, I had a bit of a slower reading month, kind of, sort of. It felt like it at least. I read 5 books. So 5 books is actually right around the average. I usually read about 5 to 7 every month. It just felt like a much slower reading month. I felt like I was taking longer to get through books, which is fine. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Yeah, it was a weird month. From the sounds of it, it's kind of a weird month across the board for a lot of people. But we are going to go ahead and dive into the 5 books that I did finish this month, as well as the 2 books that I'm currently in the middle of. So the first book that I finished in August was The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I'm actually doing a reread of this series in preparation for the 5th book to come out next year. I'm doing this reread with my friend Aparna. So I'm going to go ahead and link her Instagram account down below. If you love fun nail art and beautiful nail art, definitely check her out. So again, we are rereading this whole series. There's 4 books out right now. 5th book, The Dark Mirror, is coming out. It was supposed to be in January, but I recently saw something about it being pushed back to February. I'm not sure if that's official. I gotta look into that more. But anyway, again, reread this first one. This is actually the 10th anniversary special edition where Samantha Shannon did do some edits and rewrites. And again, I just really love this series and forgot a lot of things that happen in this first book, so it was really great to get to revisit not only this world but these characters. So in this series we are in a near future alternate version of our world where clairvoyance has always been well known, well documented, proven to exist. However, it is illegal in the Republic of Sion, which our main character Paige lives in, and she is a very strong and rare clairvoyant. Kind of clairvoyance and the interaction with the spirit world comes in many different shapes and forms in this world, and she has a very rare gift. So she's arrested pretty early on in this book, and upon her arrest and being transported to the new location that she's going to be staying in while held captive, she then uncovers a whole host of secrets of what is truly going on in the Republic of Sion. And I don't want to spoil it because then it really gets into kind of the meat and potatoes of what this book is about. But just, I absolutely love the details that Shannon puts into her worlds in building this magic system and building these communities and societies that we interact with as the reader. Paige as a character, especially in this first one, is just absolutely spunky and half feral, and I love her, and I forgot just how slightly unhinged she is, especially in this first book. Just all of the characters are very distinct, very well fleshed out. I feel like they come off the page really well, and I've just really been enjoying the start of this reread so far. So then the next book that I read was From Below by Darcy Coates. This is a horror novel. So previously I had read Hunted by Darcy Coates and absolutely loved it, and realized that I definitely wanted to explore her backlog, and realized that she has a plethora of backlog books, and so picked this one up. This is almost like a gothic novel but underwater on a shipwreck. So in the 1920s there was a ship on a voyage that kind of just disappeared off the map. There was weird kind of distress calls happening, but nobody could pinpoint its location, and it was presumed to have wrecked. There were no survivors. The only thing that really showed any sort of, I guess, result of where it might have been was that an oar from the safety boats or whatever washed up on the shore of a country that was way off the course of this ship's original course. So then, now present day, there has been a shipwreck discovered down way deep in the ocean that is presumed to be this missing ship that had the weird distress calls and just disappeared on mysterious circumstances. And so our main characters are part of a documentary team that are going down to kind of try to identify this ship and maybe take note, kind of do preliminary investigation to try to figure out what happened. And so when they get down there, of course, weird things start happening. This book is very claustrophobic, and Coates does a great job of giving you that feel of being stuck underwater in a very, again, claustrophobic, dark place because it's so far underwater. There's no real sunlight, so it's just their headlamps and flashlights that they have available to help them see. Then you're dealing with the murky water because it's in a particular place where it's about as close to sterile as the ocean can get, and so things aren't really breaking down, but there is a bunch of silt and dirt that has settled down onto the ship, and so they have to be really careful when they're swimming. If they, disturb anything, then a silt out happens where they can't see because all of the particles are in the water, so that plays a part into it, and then just the creepy, slowly increasing sense of dread that happens in this really gives it the sense of like that gothic haunted house feeling, but put it underwater and make it a ship. These characters were very interesting to read from. I kind of had the same thing that I felt with Hunted, where I wanted a little bit more out of these characters. They felt like they were just on the cusp of being well fleshed out, but I just wanted them to kind of go over that edge and give me just a little bit more for each of the characters. This is much slower paced than Hunted. The reason why I loved Hunted was it was just so fast paced, it basically grabbed you by the wrist and didn't let go until the end. This one is much slower paced, but I honestly think it worked well because if you like kind of that like gothic haunted feeling, then you'll like this. Just go into it knowing it's slow paced, and I think you'll enjoy it. There was definitely some really creepy, unsettling imagery, and it just, it creeped me out, got under my skin, made you feel that claustrophobic, like you're struggling to breathe kind of a feeling, and I really enjoyed this and ended up giving it 4 stars. And then after that, I listened to the audiobook of Nightmare Fuel, The Science of Horror Films by Nina Neseth. So this basically takes the horror film and breaks it down into what makes a horror film scary and why do we gravitate towards watching horror films and why do we love them so much. It takes you through kind of a Reader's Digest version of the history of the horror film and kind of how it really mirrors what culture and society is afraid of at that time of creation, whether it's overtly talking to that kind of cultural point or subconsciously talking to it. So that was quite interesting. It talks a lot about kind of like the brain chemistry and psychology behind being scared and the different types of fear and how we react differently to those. It was interesting. I think it did get a little dry at times, did kind of just like lose my attention at times, but if you like horror books, movies, whatever, just the genre of horror, and you kind of want to understand more of why you like it. It is very interesting to listen to. Again, I listened to it on audiobook, so I would recommend checking it out. Again, I thought that it was just okay. I wasn't like super into it, but that may have been kind of during the time when I was kind of struggling in a bit of a reading slump. I was having a really hard time focusing, so just, take my review of this with a grain of salt, because again, I feel like my attention wasn't 100% there, but the concepts and just the chapters and the level of detail that went into describing everything, even though specifically with the history of horror films, starting with what's presumed to be the first horror film up until the most recent decade, even though it was kind of a more high-level Reader's Digest view, I did feel like it was very detailed and gave you just a really good overall explanation of things. I will say it does really get into kind of brain chemistry and how the brain works. So if you like that, the first chapter is very heavy on that, as well as some of the later chapters as well. So yeah, again, it was very interesting, just to me, it was just okay. Following that, I read The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. This is the 4th and final book in the Wayfarer series. The first of the Wayfarer series being The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. This series I have been reading over the course of a couple years now. I've really been dragging it out because it's one of those series that is just, I feel like you have to read the books at a very specific moment when you're in need of a very specific kind of cozy, light yet still covering heavy and important topics, kind of a story. These books are very, very loosely connected. In each book, you're actually following a different set of characters, all in the same like massive intergalactic universe. However, you do get some kind of cameos from maybe side characters from previous books. You might be following them as the main character in later books, or main characters from previous books kind of show up as side characters or just a few short scenes in later books. So in this fourth book, we're actually kind of at this little, like, you could call it like a truck stop almost, like an intergalactic truck stop. It's on this planet that nothing grows. There's really no point to it except it's perfectly placed in between these different like wormholes that a high level of intergalactic space travel happens through. So it's a good like jump off point to get to your different wormholes that you need to go to. And so this, like I said, truck stop basically has been planted on this planet, and we're following a mother and their child as they host like a waiting, almost like a motel type of a thing that has a variety of basically like a truck stop thing. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. There's like a whole host of businesses that all offer places for people to kind of lay over on, or maybe sleep over like a night or two, gather more supplies, things like that. So we're following a mother and their child, and then 3 other people that are scheduled to visit them and hold over until their time to go through their next wormhole arrives. When all 3 of them arrive there, so then there's like 5 characters, something happens with the satellites up above, and basically everything is shut down and everybody's kind of stuck waiting for things to be fixed and waiting for it to be safe again for travel. Now, what's interesting is, you know, obviously humans in this series have been introduced into kind of the greater intergalactic society, so various types of aliens. In the previous 3 books, there's always a human or human adjacent a character. However, in this final book, there are no humans in this book. It's quite interesting because I think Becky Chambers does a really good job and kind of made a point of this, of saying like, just because they aren't humans, these are still people. And it really pointed to the fact that she really focuses in her books on various people's coming into contact with other people that are so different from each other, yet learning to be able to interact and accommodate each other's different needs, and recognizing that like, you may look completely different than me. Your sense of perceiving the world and interacting with the world may be completely different from me on a biological level. However, you are still a person. And it's just kind of these characters learning to spend this time interacting with each other. There is specifically a character whose people are kind of the black sheep of the intergalactic society. However, this person is like, well, nobody's ever really tried to interact with our people, and just kind of like that kind of a discussion. It's very, very good, very heartwarming. This one did not make me cry, but I really still had a great time with it. And I just think if you're looking for like a warm hug kind of a book, like a slice of life but make it sci-fi, this series is absolutely phenomenal. I think it won a Hugo Award, I think, for as a series, and 100% agree, it deserves all of the awards. This is just a really great series. This 4th book I did give 4 stars. I think out of the 4, my favorite one is book 2, which is A Closed and Common Orbit. That one made me cry a couple of times, and I think you can actually kind of read these books on their own. The only one that I would say you definitely need to read the first one for is book 2, simply because it follows like side characters from book 1 directly after events from book one. So you kind of need that book one context. But yeah, I think book two is definitely my favorite. And then the final book that I listened to was another audiobook, and it is Over My Dead Body, Unearthing the History of America's Cemeteries by Greg Melville. I listened to this for the book club that I'm part of. We were actually having our kind of discussion on it tonight, and this was really good. This is exactly what it says it is, kind of going through America's histories through the lenses of its cemeteries. So it literally starts from when Jamestown is created up through present day, and then from there, especially in the beginning, it really focuses on not only like the white settlers' burial grounds to begin with, but it really talks about Native American burial grounds, the desecration of those burial grounds, moving into Jewish burial grounds and the desecration of those, moving into the burial grounds on plantations of and the burial plots of slaves, and how many of them are undocumented and they are actually being actively discovered today. There was then just the discussion of the evolution of what a cemetery looks like, kind of architecturally, and how a cemetery can really show not only who lived and died in that area, but it really shows kind of the evolution of art and even like the evolution of socio-political environments in the area, the evolution of religion in the area, and then just kind of financial changes throughout the ages as well. It was quite interesting. I had a really great time listening to it. It was actually one that was on my radar even before it was a book club pick, so I'm glad that I did get to get my hands on this and experience this book. I definitely think if you like history told through specific and kind of odd lenses that you've maybe never considered before, this would definitely be a really interesting book to pick up. It got a little dry at times, and I feel like we got a little lost in the sauce in some chapters where I kind of forgot what we were focused on. The author took a while to kind of like bring us back to the main point, but overall I did find it very interesting, and again, I think if you like kind of like micro histories or histories told through a kind of unique lens, definitely consider picking this up. Then I do want to just briefly talk about the two books that I'm currently in the middle of. Both of these are actually buddy reads, buddy read books that I am trying to read at the same time, and they're both physical books, so oftentimes when I'm reading multiple books physically at the same time, I kind of struggle with that, but we are still having a great time. The first of those being The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon. This is the second book in the Bone Season series. I am roughly, I don't know, that far the way through, 182 pages, chapter 11. I'm having a great time. I realized I forgot how, like, I remember the overall events of this book. I definitely forgot how we kind of get to the meat and potatoes of this installment. So definitely glad that I'm rereading this. Again, having a great time. I'm just really enjoying being back in this world, and I just definitely need to do more rereads. My main focus right now, though, is to just focus on, in terms of rereads, the Bone Season series, but I think after this, there's definitely some other series that I want to do rereads of. But yeah, having a great time with this. And then the other book is actually a buddy read that I'm doing with Connor, and he is listening to it on audio while he is hiking on the Pacific Crest Trail, which, side note, he should hopefully be home sometime in September. Not 100% sure when, but very excited for that. He's already finished with the book. I am actually about halfway through, but that is The Watchmaker's Daughter, The True Story of World War II Heroine Corrie Tenenbaum by Larry Loftus. Apparently I have been pronouncing her name wrong. It says, like, if you read it as it's written, it's Tenboom. Connor, who listened to it on audio and had the correct pronunciation, told me I've been saying it wrong, so I apologize for that. It is telling of Corrie, who again is a watchmaker's daughter, and how her and her family housed Jewish refugees during the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands, and how she and her family were then arrested, and then post-World War II, how she continued to help Jewish families kind of get themselves reestablished. And again, I'm about halfway through. maybe a little over halfway through, page 200, chapter 20. My only complaints with this is that it's very dry. The writing is just super dry, and it bounces around a lot. Connor's told me that the second half gets a lot more streamlined and much more focused on Corey. However, the first half, we're like talking about Corey, and then we're bouncing, and there's a mention of like a diary entry of Anne Frank. Then we're bouncing, and there's a mention of Audrey Hepburn. And then we're suddenly bouncing again, and we're pulling out to talk about the broad scope of what's happening during World War II on a global level. And then we're bouncing back to Corey. And normally I don't mind shifts, but it's very jarring with how this is written. Just somehow it doesn't feel very smooth, and then again the writing's very dry, but otherwise it's quite interesting. I'm having a good time. I didn't know anything about Corey and her family, and so I'm definitely learning about a lot. So there is that one. So those are the books that I read in the month of August, and the 2 books that I am still currently in the middle of. If you have read any of these books, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, or if you're looking to read any of them next. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you consider sticking around and subscribing if you haven't already. But as always, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!